Welcome back to another edition of A Successful Transition from Monogamy to Open. As many of you have noticed, the video we did yesterday, for some reason, the sound didn't work. We had a lovely video with no sound. So as you can see, I've upgraded my microphone and we are going to try this again. So we are going to talk again about the next level of areas that affect our ingrained sexual beliefs, which are our peers, our educational system, and society at large. We start off with family, like we talked about in our last video. And after we get to this point of being school age, it's our peers and our educational system that really start to affect the ingrained beliefs we have about relationship structures and sexuality as a whole. Because once we start going to school, we not only have our beliefs, but the people we meet bring the beliefs that they've learned from their families, and they all start to kind of meld together. And since especially young children do not like to stand out or be different, even if our beliefs are not exactly the same as our friends, they start to blend and meld because kids want to fit in. They want to feel like they're all, they've got people who understand them. And so if your family's beliefs are a little bit different from most of your peers and your friends, sometimes people just automatically start to change their beliefs to match what is around them, to match what they think of as the norm. And so there's a very heteronormative standard then of what male-female relationships are like, the gender stereotypes that we tend to see, and that relationships are brought up to only see that it can be two people, that their other options are not even really brought into the picture. And then the educational system gets involved, and the teachers and just the curriculum as a whole continue this trend of the norm. There's very little sex education about same-sex relationships, anything other than the typical heterosexual two-person relationship norms. It's starting to try to get better in, the last maybe decade or two. But for those of us who are baby boomers, Gen Xers, we did not grow up with that at all. And let's face it, most of the people who are trying to get into open relationships, that's a lot of us, the Gen Xers, the late baby boomers, and now some of the early millennial generation. So, and for those who grew up in the millennial generation, because of the government standards, a lot of people had abstinence-only sex education. They didn't even have sex education that talked about anything besides just say no. And so there's virtually nothing about even contraception or how to understand young budding sexuality. Our sex education programs are all fear-based. It's fear of pregnancy, it's fear of sexually transmitted infections, it's all the fear stuff, and it's nothing about pleasure. There's nothing that's the slightest bit anything other than heterosexual, two people, procreative directed, pro-marriage ideals. That's what the teaching is. And if that's what the teaching is, then the curriculum is clearly biased information, masking as being objective, when in fact it's really not. And it doesn't teach options. It doesn't really teach that there are other choices for people to look at. And then we get into just society at large. And society, sometimes we don't think about the immense power that our society has on our behaviors and our thinking patterns. Just think about the saying, what will the neighbors think? That has a huge power on many people in our society. And then you bring in unique sexual behaviors or relationship dynamics, and it really gets even more complicated. And there's so many people who allow their friends, their neighbors, their coworkers, even people in the grocery store, to affect their behaviors and the way they engage in things. Certainly there can be positive effects in society overall for having this type of behavioral control, but unfortunately it's very overrated. And that conformity and that social control, then you get into the whole aspect of, well, people labeling and judging certain things as normal or abnormal, as if, who's to decide what's normal, or like, who makes these decisions? And yet the way our society uses this judgment against people who have alternative sexuality is extremely real. Think about it for a second. If you're in a polyamorous relationship and you're going to be going to your work company's summer picnic or holiday party in the winter, are you going to bring your spouse and your boyfriend or girlfriend? And if you do that, what are the repercussions going to be? If you're up for a raise and a promotion, are you going to get that raise and promotion, or is that going to go to the person in your company who's known to have a more traditional relationship marriage? If you're in the swinging lifestyle and somebody at work comes up on Monday and says, "How was your weekend?" Are you going to talk about the great time you had at the swing club on Friday or Saturday night? Probably not. It's probably, even in most career fields, whether it's a law office, a hospital, a restaurant, a corporate office, talking about engaging those kinds of activities is going to get you some funny looks and is probably in some ways going to get you blackballed from getting promotions. So it's a very real aspect for people. And there is very much of a culture war in our society when it comes to sexuality. There are two kinds of groups of people. There's the erotophiles, which are people who are open to various types of sexual pleasure and variety in relationships. They may want to go to a nude beach, a strip club, a swinger club, a BDSM dungeon, a polyamory meetup or mixer. And yet there's another group of people called the erotophobes. And the erotophobes, not only do they not want to do all these things, they don't want anyone else to do them. They don't want you to be able to do them. And they actively fight against people having the option to go to swing clubs. They try to shut them down, to try to go to nude beaches. They actively try to shut them down. Any of these things, they are so opposed to it that they will do everything in their power because they think it's wrong. They don't want to do it. Therefore, you shouldn't be allowed to do it as well. And that has a very dangerous effect on our society. And it is definitely something that will come up when you get into open relationships. You are going to see these things kind of hitting you in the face at times about the things that you don't tell your neighbors where you went, the party you're not going to tell your doctor you're going to on Saturday night when they say, "So what plans do you have for the weekend?" I get it all the time. I was at a chiropractor today, and he asked, I'd had a treatment done on my neck, and he goes, "Well, if you have any plans this weekend, we might not want to do another one right beforehand. Do you have anything that you're going to plan to do?" And I don't necessarily want to tell him about the swinging house party that I have planned to go to on Friday night. I don't know what kind of reaction he's going to get or how he's going to treat me the next time I go, and he's going to be sticking needles in my neck. I don't know that I want to deal with it. And this affects all of us. We temper the things we would say because we're not quite sure how we're going to be received. So it's important to think about this when you're making this transition and you're getting into this new lifestyle of how does this affect us? And how do those ingrained beliefs affect us? So if you've been keeping a list that we talked about in like one of the first videos, again, start writing some of this down on your one side of the little things that will pop up that maybe you don't want to talk about, or that you hold back, or that you think differently about people who do these kinds of things. And then how does that start affecting you when you're now one of those people? So that's all for today. Hopefully our video, or at least our audio, worked better. I'll be back tomorrow and we will talk about our next area, which is the media, which is another huge area for ingrained sexual and relationship beliefs. So thanks for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.